Craig,
Hey.
welcome to Pickup's podcast. It's great to have you in the office today to talk more about your story. Green Riders, amazing. I think what you are doing with your startup is incredible. How did you come up with the name, Green Riders? And tell us more about the startup.
Yeah, so thanks Antonio and Picup for having me here. So the backstory is actually we had a business called Pathway Cycles. The beginning of that business started off with renting e-bikes to various franchises such as Roman's Pizza and so forth. The name made sense at the time. However, we started getting a lot more calls from people like, hey, can you fix my bike, or do you sell bikes and whatever else. So the word Pathway Cycles just didn't make sense for the business model. And it was around about 2022 we looked at why we're actually doing this business. I'm very purpose driven, and at first it sounded pretty cool, renting out e-bikes, and yes, it's making an environmental impact to various restaurants or whatever else. I was like, it's really not like sitting at my core like I'm doing something significant. It's very easy to scale. I mean, you just, hey, got a bike, cool, yeah, I'll take one, this is your rental fee for the week. We got to about 60 bikes at that time, and yeah, completely bored of the business model. And one day we went into the Noon Township, and we just took our bikes there, and a couple of people like, hey, how do we become part of your team? It's like, no, we don't rent to people, we've always just rented to shops. And all of a sudden it clicked. I was like, no, this is something now impactful, right? So we can actually make a difference in people's lives. So you asked the question of how we got to Green Riders, then we decided, okay, let's move completely away from Pathway Cycles being a electric bike company, where Green Riders stands for, you're a human being riding on an eco-friendly vehicle. So we've never really branded ourselves since the merger or acquisition of Green Riders to be an EV business as such. It's more, we are a fleet. We Green Riders that use EVs as part of the business model. So yeah, that's where we decided, hey, let's go for the word Green Riders. Actually, our chairman's son came up with the idea. He threw it on the table. I was like, hey, that sticks. So yeah, we just stuck with that.
That's great. So very, very interesting. When we as Picup, when we started, I think in our first year, 2014, EV bikes were going. We were thinking like, we need to get into the space. I think we bought two bikes. Found two riders to pop them onto the bikes, and our office was in town in Loop Street, and we're like, great, these guys are going to go out and do deliveries. Very quickly learned that the roads traffic was crazy, riders were getting knocked over. They needed a certain amount of skill to ride the bikes. Very challenging, and very quickly we thought, no, we need to focus on actually building as a delivery as a service business rather than trying to run these e-bikes. At that stage when sort of the penny dropped for you, and you're like, well, we've got a business model, we've got a concept. Moving into that time of like putting riders on bikes, how important was you to train riders on actually riding bikes, and what challenges did you have on the roads in the early stages?
Yeah, so that's a huge challenge, generally in South Africa. So you can say culturally, when someone learns how to ride a bicycle, they learn it from like a friend, uncle, father, whatever. There's no real methodology of what is the best practice on that bike. So take a scenario, if you're a kid in a township, you know how to ride a bicycle, but as soon as you go onto the main roads, you don't understand, like, hey, there's actually stop streets, there's rules, you have to use hand signals. You could say it's like just knowing street riding, right? Riding around your neighborhood. We all did it as kids. I mean, I can't remember once riding home from school using a hand signal. I didn't even know that was a thing until I was a bit older. Yeah, so I guess it is a challenge. We've got a 3-month program that we've been very blessed to have backing from Marambi. So if it wasn't for that program, I don't think we would actually continue doing what we do, because it is dangerous out there. I think for bicycles, motorbikes, everything, you need to have some sort of formal training in order to understand the rules and understand like your own safety and safety of others as well. From like an accident perspective, we have guys that fall all the time, but we always say, like, if you're on a bicycle, you're going to fall. I mean, I can't even remember how many times I've fallen off a bicycle in my life. But I think where we find it being quite okay is the speed differences. So if you're on a freeway and you're riding like 120 and you crash, it's quite detrimental to the person riding. One of our guys, we had a guy about a week ago rode into the back of a Polo. Looked up, next thing you know, Polo was there, and that was probably one of the biggest crashes we've had. And he was back at work the next day. It's just that impact. So it is quite nerve-wracking to know that you've got people out there and it's lives. But where we started becoming proactive is actually working with government, working with city planners. We've got a lot of backing from the city of Cape Town, the Gauteng government that's looking at how do we improve infrastructure, roads, bicycle lanes to become and adopt more of a European mindset. And we have to start somewhere, right? We can't just, it's not black or white. You have to go through a transition phase, and that transition is actually happening. So a quick story, if you look at a place like Langa, it's about 100 years old now. I think they had their 100th anniversary this year. To date, they still don't have a route to go from Langa to CBD using bicycles or any sort of, everything is surrounded due to the spatial apartheid regime. Everything is highways. So now for the first time, they're creating something called a safe passage. It's one of our partners from the Active Mobility Forum. So he runs a company called Young Urbanist that works very closely with governments. And they've actually created this whole map to map out like Cape Town and say, okay, from Langa to CBD, how are we going to create safe passages, so basically like class 3 bicycle lanes, so people can get from Cape Town to CBD or from Langa to CBD quite safely. And that all comes with one person going into the market. I don't think if Green Riders was in the market, the government and everyone that's investing into something like this, it'll go, what's the point? There's no one adopting this. Who's going to actually use these bicycle lanes? Who's going to use this fancy infrastructure? So yeah, it is a challenge, but someone has to do it, and if it's not us, it's going to be someone else. So I guess we're the guinea pigs and we have to make it work.
Yeah, I think talking to that word challenge, I think, again, your idea started, put an electric bike, let a rider rent it, let him create an opportunity for him to earn, which I want to talk about later. But that immediate challenge, those challenges started presenting themselves. The one, obviously, rider safety. So Rumby coming on board, being instrumental in putting programs together. We mentioned one accident now. I think that's how has that grown to date? Like, how big is the program? Is it Western Cape specific? Are you looking to grow it nationally?
Yeah, so to date, we've trained over 600 people. Rumby has backed us, so we're actually running a training program now of just over 600 people between Langa, Athlone, some townships in the northern suburbs, Wallasdean, I think it's called, and North Pine. So they just want to see job creation. So they're not going to fund stipends and all of that, all those other things that come with like skills development, but they trust us that our program is good enough to create someone that is going to be safe on the road, understand the gig economy, understand how to use apps. So remember, some of these guys never even owned a cell phone, so it's like brand new to them. This is how you actually switch on a smartphone. Mind blown. This is how you use Google Maps. They've never used stuff like that. For us, it's like, I think this program should take you like 3-4 days to learn. But for someone that's never experienced any of these, from bicycle handling to e-bike handling, understanding how the electric vehicle works, understanding all of these things, it's a challenge, but that's what we have to do to make this thing work. So we've got about 1,000 people by end of February that'll be active in Cape Town. And then we want to expand to Joburg from March onwards. So we're starting to recruit now in Joburg, getting an operational team up and running that side. Had a lot of meetings with the Premier of Gauteng, Gauteng Department of Economic Development, also other partners such as Uber, where they've got big township strategies as well out there. It's quite difficult with hardware. You can't just, open up in a new district. It's a huge operation. It's a very expensive operation. So we're just getting the groundwork in place first, so that when we start, we've got the staff and the facilities up and running.
So that's from those challenges and the problems you're really solving for informing a business model. Like, it's clear you're entrepreneurial. You like to go out and look for problems, solve them. As those challenges have presented themselves, you've been instrumental in tackling them. Like you spoke about Arambi now, you talk about local government, roads. Very fundamental in what Green Riders is today. To talk back to the actual the bike asset, obviously that was maybe version 1 bike now.
Yeah.
What's the life cycle of building that asset in South Africa that's conducive to the road conditions, using it, your riders using this bike efficiently? What's the journey been like in actually building your bikes?
Yeah, so our very first fleet we ever brought in, it was 100 bikes, and we've probably got like 10 left. Thinking we had the perfect solution, but what you'll buy from China or other countries does not mean it's going to work in the African environment. There wasn't anyone else doing it, so we didn't have like a benchmark. I couldn't go spy next door and say, hey, this looks cool, this doesn't look cool. You just kind of take a risk. So we did take the risk, and we learned a lot from that. So I'm not sad that I bought those bikes, because we wouldn't have learned what we knew today. Then from there we created our second generation e-bike, which we were probably about 50% satisfied with, thinking we were going to be 100% satisfied. And you think everything's going to be perfect, and when you've got 1 million kilometers on the road, then you realize, okay, there's a lot of problems that we need to tackle. Our third generation e-bike, funny enough, actually landed 2 days ago. So we've got 600 of them that have just arrived now in South Africa. We've learned a lot. Our second generation, it's just stupid things that you don't think about until you put the bike in practicality. We've done a huge battery upgrade. There's things called like controllers in your display. Some of them weren't syncing perfectly with our IoT, as an example. Tires, we've gone through, I can't even count how many different samples of tires we've tested. So it's all great to ride around Cape Town CBD, but as soon as you get home and you live in a township where there's nail factories pretty much everywhere, if you don't have the right tire, you have pretty much punctures every single day. So punctures were a huge challenge in Mach 1 and Mach 2. We've now moved over to motorbike tires. So it looks like a bicycle tire, but it's got the compound of a motorbike tire. It's just a lot more durable than what a bicycle tire generally is. Huge battery upgrades, because we really want to get, we see that a lot of our guys are doing between 110, 150 kilometers a day. With a double battery, we were just getting to 100. And then they cut their day short, or the last 1 or 2 orders, they actually just run out of battery. And yes, we're putting up charging infrastructure and all of that, but we're trying to create a model where you can actually just put a tank worth of petrol in, and you're going to be able to get around for the day. So we're kind of going with the same type of mindset with our e-bikes. And we've just now landed our third generation. As soon as those landed, we took them out the box, we had a look, and we've already, our technical director Rory's already made our notes for our fourth generation. There's just tiny things, we'll never stop upgrading, but that's the nature of the game. There's new technology that comes out all the time. So we're constantly trying to learn and see how do we better this bike. But yes, you can't buy something from Alibaba and just say, hey, this is going to work in South Africa. Really, it doesn't. You're going to waste a lot of money doing that.
So it sounds like you mentioned, I think one of your crew members looking at your version 3 bike, already making improvements for the next version. How important has it been about building the team and sort of what are the most important things that the team focus on now? You've obviously got the asset, the bike, the riders. What are the most important things you focus on as the founder in the business day to day?
The key focus to us has always been the rider success. Without a rider being successful, the business is not successful. So we put a lot of energy into that. We've got a really strong operational team. We have about 6 rider managers. So between the full fleet, we'll divide them up, and we'll have 1 rider manager overseeing that with his team leads to assist on day to day. That is by far the most important part of this business, is to make sure that the rider is successful. Then I've got a separate team that looks after hardware. So we've got a warehouse manager, probably got about 15 or 20 tech staff, constantly refurbishing bikes. That's just a big trick in this game. If you're not, you can buy a fleet of 100, 200 bikes, and before you wipe your eyes, those bikes have completely fallen apart. Yeah. Especially in Cape Town. I mean, we live by the coast, so things rust, and it's a workhorse. They're doing 120 kilometers, 150 kilometers a day. So it's a big team to constantly serve. It's not like serving a motorbike, we have to change oil and stuff, but there's routine maintenance. And then I've got Rory, who's more on like the R&D side. He would take a bike, completely strip it apart, see what can we improve. I'm not going to go into all the details of like his day-to-day stuff, but sometimes it'll be one small part that can almost ruin your entire fleet. And like, how do we solve this part to be more sustainable the next time? Because something just keeps tripping. It's electronics. There's so many like variables that make the hardware actually work and last a couple of years. So like, what do we need to replace? What is the best technology at a decent price? So those are the 2 main things. Would be obviously making sure that the fleet's operational, and secondly is the rider success.
So to talk more about the rider success, and I think that's also where Picup and Green Riders have come together and working quite closely. Picup being the delivery as a service platform and providing opportunities to all the Green Riders to jump on the app and do deliveries. Tell us more about the day-to-day of a Green Rider. When he signs up and he gets his bike, who's he doing work for? Where's he riding? What does his typical hours look like?
Yeah, so a day-to-day overview of what a rider would be obviously in the delivery sector. But we're also looking at other ways of them making like SMME type of models where they can make money in between deliveries. That's a project we'll be launching in 2024. You're in the gig economy. You don't want every minute you sit is a minute wasted where you could be doing something. So we've got a couple of strategies there. But currently what we do is partners such as Picup, Uber, Mr. D. We'll look where's supply needed. Let's say for example northern suburbs. We've got a couple of 100 guys out there. Uber's not as strong out there as maybe a Mr. D, so we'd focus more on the Mr. D side of the fleet. Then maybe you could say like West Coast, doing something with Picup. We know, okay, we've got a couple of stores, Pick-a-Pay stores or Nando stores or whatever the case might be. We'll plug in with you guys and we know that this is a strong pickup area. Then in Cape Town CBD, that just absolutely crashes on Uber. We had one guy, it was two days ago, did 60 deliveries. That was our complete record. I didn't even know someone could do that on an e-bike. So it was his it's a company record. It was just incredible to see that. But in CBD, Mr. D is not as prominent as what Uber would be. So our job from our side as an implementer, we'll look at, let's say, Western Cape and say, okay, what is the demand for various aggregators? Just separate our fleet. I mean, we're not going to get someone that lives in, let's say, Joe Slovo to go work in Stellenbosch. So we'll work on a specific cohort and say, okay, this is your partner or your aggregator partner that you're going to be focusing with.
So that's great. I mean, the story and helping the communities, helping young entrepreneurs, because that's essentially what they are. They need a phone, they need a means to earn money. They're connecting with Green Riders, they're hopping on a bike. they take the bikes home, right? Like they've got to look after their asset. That asset helps them earn money every single day. Tell us more about that asset. Is it a model where the riders eventually own the bike? How are they, when they're working every single day, the mindset around them looking after their asset and running their own business? How important is that for you to sort of educate into all the riders?
That's, to be honest, the most important part of this entire program. So there are a lot of programs out there where they'll train a rider how to ride a motorbike or show them how to use an app, and then they onboard you onto Picup or onto Uber and then say, good luck and God bless. That's the easy part. I mean, we would have been on thousands of riders if that was the case. Unfortunately, in South Africa, it's a very different mindset, especially amongst the youth of South Africa. They come from such a disadvantaged background where they don't realize, their mind says to them I can't be anything more than I am. I wake up at 11 o'clock and I go to bed, and I don't know what 6 hours of work looks like or 8 hours of work looks like. So we literally sit with, that's what our rider managers do on a daily basis, is completely changing that mindset and showing them if you want to be successful in this industry, you need to wake up, you need to hustle, you need to be the first out on the road. And every single day, sending encouraging messages. We have our own internal competitions, people that are by 10 o'clock, if you've done 5 deliveries, here's some sort of prize. And we find that that's the most important part, because if we don't change the mindset, they will blame the apps, they will blame themselves or blame the company and say, no, this is not a good future for me. But as soon as they taste what money tastes like, right, then all of a sudden something clicks and they go, hey, I can do this. And once that happens, that's when you can kind of leave them alone, because they understand that entrepreneurial instinct just kicked in. But before that, they all come there saying, hey, I'm looking for a job. And they don't realize how much work you need to be putting in order to be successful. So what we've also noticed in the industry is working smart, and obviously you have to work hard, but it's more working smart. So what we've started doing is working out strategies for the guys. We'll say, go here in the morning, and 12 o'clock do this, and 5 o'clock do this, and these are the hot spots and whatever else. And we've seen that that's also picked up their success rate. But going back to the hardware, we do work on a rent-to-own model. So we've got just over 20 guys now that actually own their own assets. Wow. So they've paid it off now and they own it and they run their own businesses. We thought there would be more of an excitement around, hey, I'm going to own my own asset one day, but it's the same thing as the mindset saying, in a year from now, I'm going to own my own asset. Only right closer to the time they go, it's me now, next month I own it, yes. Oh, okay, and then you see the excitement coming. But telling them now, end of the year, it's almost just gets lost in thought. But when it comes to the guys do take the bikes home and maintenance and all of that, it's difficult because they didn't realize if they don't look after their bike, it puts them back. If you leave the bike outside in the rain the whole night and your bolts start rusting, sure. 3 months later you need to waste a day coming in for repairs, where if you just looked after your bike, your bike's going to look after you. It's got better. The first year that we were doing that, the amount of breakdowns and the amount of bikes that we had to refurbish was unbelievable. But now, through the program, the mindset change of saying, you've been created this opportunity is here for you. We're not doing you a favor. Look after your stuff, respect it, and you will see, the bike will look after you as well.
Yeah, that's truly incredible. I think eventually riders understanding, as your model evolved, the riders will really understand. The more riders that own their asset, creates the platform for them to learn and understand that this is my means to earn a living. So it's truly wonderful. Electricity, South Africa, the challenges that we as a country have to face every single day. Yourself building a business that relies on charging infrastructure, riders out and about needing to charge their batteries. How do you, number one, how do you manage that? And number two, what is your advice to entrepreneurs that are building a business in South Africa and need to rely on electricity to function day to day.
Yeah, look, the ideal world would be to get completely off the grid, but I think we're still quite far from that. It's a very expensive operation. A lot of people think, okay, yeah, if I get EVs, I'll get charging stations that's, with solar panels. You don't realize how big, electric bikes batteries or electric moped battery. It's a significant amount of panels that you need just to charge up one of those. So, putting that in your initial business plan, I wouldn't do it all. You have to rely, unfortunately, on the grid. We feel a lot of pressure from around about level 6 load shedding. It's got those four-hour gaps, and you've got like 2 hours of power, then another 4-hour gaps. I think we have more stress when the cell phone towers go down. To me, it's a bit more stressful than the batteries, the battery charging. Because if the batteries need to be charged, and there is load shedding, generally they charge up at night anyway. Thank God, load shedding is never really between like 11 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning. Our government likes to make sure that it affects our day, not our evenings. So, it kind of works for us in that sphere. But starting up a business, thinking about like electricity and load shedding and all the challenges that come with South Africa. I think crime. I mean, there's just a lot of factors that are kind of against you in starting a business in this country, especially when it's a hands-on business where you have to, be out in the field. It's you're not sitting back in head office type of level where you can just take an overview of what's going on in South Africa. We're actually in the midst of what's actually happening. For example, there's a lot of townships as well that simply don't have electricity. So we have to think, how do these guys charge up? Say Dunedin as an example, there's like 4 or 5 sites. 3 of those 5 have electricity, the other 2 don't. We can't say to someone that comes from like, let's say, site 5, hey, no, you can't work because you don't have electricity at your house. That's against my morals. So I'm just saying, okay, how do we solve your problem for you? So what we do is we'll have like charging containers. So we've got a charging container in Joe Slovo. We've obviously got the one at our warehouse. We've got one in Wallerstein, where we look for like areas that have stable electricity. Cape Town CBD is a good example, especially a lot of the government land that's close to, I think, fire stations, hospitals. They don't have load shedding problems at all. So we just try and strategically look, where would we place that's got either lower load shedding than the norm or no load shedding at all. But for the most part, people get to charge their batteries at night. Most guys finish shift at 10:30, 11. We've never really seen load shedding between 11 and like 6 in the morning. And if there is, the battery takes like 2 hours to charge up. So, or they say 2.5 hours. So there will always be 2.5 hours at some point. But you probably feel the same when the signal starts dropping. Sure. And guys are on an order and the GPS is just spinning, but you're not going to get anywhere. I think that becomes very stressful. But yeah, again, you probably do the same. You have people calling and doing manual directions. It's not ideal, but these are the cards we've been dealt with in South Africa. So just be super resilient and just go. Like, I think what's quite cool about being a South African is people understand that these are the challenges. So if something comes up, no one goes, oh, you're a complete moron, why were you late with my order? So legitimately, there's been load shedding for 4 hours. Here's my app, the GPS is not working. I did my best that I could. And we can kind of relate because we all live in the same country, we're all dealing with the same problem. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. So I think you answered the question there with the advice for a person starting business in South Africa. It's resilience. I think you can't look at the problems and sit there and go, well, these are the problems. We can't do our work. You got to get in there, understand the problems, be resilient, look for the solutions, and then just plow your way through it.
Yeah.
And I think what you guys are doing at Green Riders, what you've done from the start, is truly phenomenal. Us working together every single day, your teams, my teams, we're really passionate about giving as many orders to Green Riders as possible, because we know that there's a whole educational aspect to your business. The riders are owning their own, looking to own their own asset, and just a really great story. So Craig, absolutely well done on on all your efforts and what you've done with your team. It's absolutely brilliant. We as Picup are really excited to be working with you, and we'll, we're excited about growing into other parts of South Africa. I think your business model is one that is going to flourish. And yeah, really excited to be partners with you guys. So well done.
Yeah, thank you to you and Picup for trusting Green Riders and being our partners. The team absolutely love it. We've got some of our plus drivers now, and they're like so thrilled. They're like, I can't believe how much money I'm making now. There's also a new guy that's just started, and apparently he's now becoming a plus driver for Nando's. And he sent me a personal message. He's like, Craig, did you promote me? I said, no, I'm a Picup. But yeah, I gave a good word. You're obviously doing well. So
no, that's nice, absolutely, that's great. And I think more about our teams collaborating and really spending time communicating with the riders is super important. And I think more of those success stories are coming through, and to also talk to our clients. For us, our clients are the story around Green Riders is super exciting for them. They all the orders, as many orders as possible that go to Green Riders, it's a positive story for them. So truly exciting, and excited about what's to come.
Thank you.